the Real Hustle Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Chris Kivlin. Real hustle, real people, real results. You can help support our podcast by checking out our Real Hustle gear. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and more. The Real Hustle gear is great for the gym or even a night out on the town. Let everyone know that you are a real hustler willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. You can check us out right now at realhustle.com, and right now we're offering all of our listeners 10% off when you use the promo code podcast at checkout. Once again, that is podcast to receive 10% off your entire order. realhustle.com.
What's up, man?
Not much, brother. How you doing?
Good to have you.
It's good to be here. I know it took a few starts and stops, but I made it.
I know you decided you were going to go on vacation and then be like, my wife decided to surprise me, and I was like, okay. So where did you go?
We went to Captiva Island.
Captiva Island.
Yeah.
Is that nice? Where's that at?
It's if you go Fort Myers and go south about an hour and 15 minutes on the little island chain, like Sanibel.
Okay, so you can drive there.
Yeah, we drove there. It wasn't bad. It was a couple hours from here.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was a nice, needed getaway for the wife and kids.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have you on because you got some pretty cool stuff that's going on in your life, and we'll get to the cool part in a little bit. But let's start, because like a lot of the guests that we have on the podcast is people that are entrepreneurs like yourself that have started their own business. And so kind of just tell us a little bit about you and tell us a little bit about what you do for a living.
Sure, absolutely. So, gosh, since 1997, I got into the recruiting, headhunting field, which my crazy uncle, God rest his soul, guy's absolutely nuts, right? But he was very good at what he did, and I knew he was making a lot of money back when the tech bubble was bursting, or really full swing. Internet was going full swing, so we did tech recruiting.
Okay.
Placements, salespeople, engineers for companies like Hewlett-Packard, IBM. Got into it, and I thought, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And I was right, and I became like top dog at the firm, and it was like Anchorman. It was very dated. It looked like the set of Anchorman. They had clip-on ties. It was bad, right? So I knew that over the years I did that. I did it either for big companies or smaller companies, but a number of years ago, about whenever Irma rolled in, Hurricane Irma was a significant benchmark as far as timing goes on this. A couple of events happened. I got to an age where I couldn't give the illusion that I wanted to work for a company anymore. I really wanted to do this for myself. But there was a whole fear of getting clients and doing it just no revenue to back you up. It's just you got to bet on yourself.
Right.
My wife had just been informed by her school that she was teaching at that they're closing. And this was right when school was about to start.
Oh,
so the jobs were gone. She didn't like teaching anyway.
Okay.
And I said, what do you want to do? And she's like, physical therapy assistant. I'm like, go for it. Go to Kaiser. She's like, but I thought you started your business. I said, I am. So we also got the news that her father got cancer that same time. And a couple things happened. It freed me up to take him to Moffitt for his treatments. And he didn't last a year. Okay. But I was able to be there and be the advocate for them because, God bless her, her mom she doesn't hear things so well. She's very high strung. So they kind of needed that translator medically and personally to be there. So all these things came in together at once. And I said, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself. And I went for it. And set some goals, and I hit them, and it just kept rolling, and it kept rolling, and it kept rolling. And what I found was the illusion that I have to work for somebody was smashed. The illusion that, they've got something that you don't have, therefore that's why they have a business, was smashed. But the only way I found to smash it was to really walk right through the fear and just do it. Right. And you always hear it.
Yep.
You always hear it. I know you preach it, man. That's what this whole thing's about.
Right.
But it really is saying you can bet on yourself. And it's not going to be easy, but just do it. And I did it. There's never a good time to do it. That's the other thing I'll tell people out there. Never a good time to do it.
That's the thing. It's like I hear it all the time. Even when I'm recruiting for the mortgage world and I'm trying to recruit other loan officers, it's like, well, I don't know. I was like, there's never a good time, right? It's just comes to the point where you decide, I'm going to do it. And this is it. And I'm going to change. And you have to just change your mindset and say, I'm going for it. I was like, what else do I have to lose, right? Okay, let's say it doesn't work out. All right, I go back to doing what I was doing. But how do you know until you do it? You know? And so, and that's what I love about the podcast, because like that's what I hear, the success from it. So go ahead.
And all the platitudes we could throw out there, if it's worth having, it's worth doing, and it's probably going to be hard to do. We could roll out all the memes and quotes that you want, but at the end of the day, it really was about betting on myself, and it's not into thinking, it's into action. Like, it's just doing.
Right.
And if I got up every day and just did, I'd have the list of things and I'd get overwhelmed. Well, all these things have to come together. What I found was, once I started wearing life like a loose garment and going, I've made the decision and I'm just going to do one thing towards that decision each day, I can do that.
Right.
I'm not the smartest guy you're going to meet today, bro. like, listen, there's some other people that can do the whole list.
Right.
And just intuitively, inherently know how to do stuff. I had to figure it out, and while that was going on, figure out how to manage taking care of my father-in-law, letting my wife not worry about the kids and going through her school, and then closing on a house and putting all that together and doing this business. And I didn't stress. I just did it. The other thing I did is I didn't talk about it.
Okay.
I didn't walk around telling everybody, look what I'm trying to do, because I was afraid I'm going to fail, and I don't want to have to admit that I tried it and failed. I mean, that's just the truth.
Truth, yeah.
So I thought, let's just do this. Let's just do this. And and then as time went on, COVID hit, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew you then, right. And I knew that put the brakes on it. But before any of this happened, I'll just mention this as vaguely or not vaguely as possible. I'm the youngest of 8 kids, and we weren't Mormon. We were Catholic, right? My dad took that shit serious. And we moved from city to city. I lived in 8 places before 6th grade.
Wow.
So I was desperate to get some friends, right? Mm-hmm. And I was willing to do what it took to get friends. And a lot of that involved running with the wrong crowd and doing the wrong things. That duality, that path of trying to be the kid that my parents wanted me to be and running hard, I had a history of blowing up relationships, divorces, helicopters looking for me, hospitals. I'm just going to tell you, it was Nikki Sixx type stuff.
Wow.
And I had to make that decision at some point to change, do something different. And when I did that and restored my family, that gave me the confidence to do something else, and so what I'm saying is, with COVID, bad business, the other shoe's not going to drop, bro. It already did. It dropped back here.
Right?
What's the worst that can happen to me with all that I've been through,
right.
Self-imposed or not? I came through it,
right.
So
you hit rock bottom before.
Yeah. And I use that as, I always say, wear it like a loose garment. Like, I don't take myself too serious. Clearly, you know me to some degree.
Right.
And I'll just say this: I think there's a force out there that is on my side, and all I had to do is appeal to that and not try to be the tie-wearing corporate guy that I could look like. But if you got to know me, you're like, one of these things is not like the other dude. I don't think you belong here. I have a good friend of mine said, I think you may be unemployable, dude. And what he said that he meant by that was, you're compromising yourself if you want to be this corporate person, even though there's nothing wrong with it. That's not who you are.
Yep.
So what I've found in this discovery is who I am and who I'm not. And who I am is someone that wants to do it my way. And so there's weeks I want to give myself a raise, and other weeks I want to fire myself, right? Trust me, but it's my call.
Right.
And so for your viewers, I would say that if you want to bet on yourself, you're going to have to bet on yourself. And no, there's never going to be a good time to do it. You're just going to have to do it, man. And literally have the confidence to say, it's not going to, the success won't look the path like you thought. If I drew out, this is what needs to happen in order for it to work, I've had these wholesale, I'd call them almost miracles, happen that had nothing to do with my little plans and designs, but a tapestry of people, places, and things that come together once I was open to having them come together, if that makes sense.
So what did you do? Because, okay, so you were going through COVID and probably had some downturn, right? It was tough. So what did you do to pull yourself back out of that?
didn't do much different. I just kept in touch with everything's relationship driven for me.
Okay.
So the clients I have, I could work much harder and I could really scramble around on the marketing side. But what I found is a group of clients that have become friends. I can talk to them like I talk to you.
Okay.
They trust me. I trust them. They only use me. I just stayed close to a group of people like that own companies. And
so how did you get those? Did you go to like tech companies and say, hey, I'm a recruiter and this is what I can do for you, or?
To some degree, that's a great question, because when I think back, it's like, well, how was the genesis of like my best client, as an example? What happened there? I left him a series of voicemails, and what I didn't do was a typical recruiter schlocky thing. Mm-hmm. I just broke it down like me talking to you. Like, listen, I know you get a million of these calls, and I don't expect you to call me back, but in the event that you do, I just want to tell you how I do this. And I find that the clients I use, it's just a handful, appreciate the way I do it, and on and on. And he got back to me and said, there was something about your voicemail that was different. So again, if you're marketing or in sales, I always look for, I use LinkedIn a lot. Mm-hmm. I really try to create a totally different approach to messaging and think about how is this going to be completely different from what somebody else is going to send. And here's what the industry norm looks like. I'm going to do it different. And I get better results from people going, that stood out. I ask them, why did you call me back? Whether it's a candidate or a client,
right.
There's something different about your message.
Well, that's the thing is, so like I get recruited all the time in the mortgage world. Mm-hmm. And I'm be honest with you, I hate recruiters.
I am one, and I hate most of them.
So it's like, I mean, and like, because they do, it's the same spiel all the time. Well, we have this and we have that. And I'm like, I don't care, right? I mean, it's like, tell me something that's different. Every recruiter has the same spiel, and it's like, okay, we have this, or we can offer you this, or we can. I'm like, but it's the same crap, and it's always the same thing. And I'm just like, because I mean, I probably get recruiting calls almost every other day because I produce a good amount of loans, and so they're always calling me, and I'm just like, dude, not that I'm going anywhere because I love where I'm at, but like the thing is, it's like, change it up a little bit, figure out something different, you know, and at least try to be different, you know, because like you're doing everything the 100 other recruiters are doing right. too, you know, and it's like, I don't even talk to them now. Like I would be like, delete. And I'm just like, you know, or it's like they answer the phone and I just like, they start getting to their spiel and it's the same spiel every time. I'm like, I'm not interested. Click. I mean, you know what I mean? And so like, that's the thing is like, you know, use something different, but like, you know, I mean, cause like you said, like even in my world, everything's relationship driven, yeah. right? My agents, you know, are relationships. My clients become relationships. So build a relationship, because who knows, right? Maybe down 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road or something like that. If we have a good relationship, maybe I will call you. But like, don't always sell me how great your company is or how much, you know, we do this or we're better at this and that kind of stuff. I don't care.
You made a good point about, I guess what I found too is I have some relationships that I've had for over 20 years, right? And there's people I placed that I knew 8 years ago, but it didn't place them till last year. And the key is they know I know them. They know I'm going to take the time to get to know them. They know I'm going to know about their kids, what they do. And the other thing I try to tell people when I was training people, and I found that I didn't want to do that anymore. I like just working for myself. I just do. Is look at where they went to school. Look at some of their hobbies. Look at their interests. And maybe start with a subject line that appeals to that. You know what I mean? Because nobody does that. They're going to look directly at their skill set, like, you know, branch manager, mortgage,
right.
Sarasota.
Right.
Like, I got 80 of these, right. You know, the last month. It's what's, you know, I don't even want to look at it.
I don't even look at it. I delete them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, because it's like, great, another one. Great, another one. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And so it's like, it even in my world, it can, and I know they have a job to do, right? And their job is to recruit. But if you want to make yourself stand out, do something different. And, even in my mortgage world, like how I built my business was, how can I be different than every other loan officer? Because there's nobody else. There's not another loan officer out there that does podcasts. There's not a lot of other loan officers that do what I was doing. And so like I was like, all right, what can I do differently? What can I do differently that nobody else is doing? And how can I attract business? And how can I make people want to come do business with me? And I would always be like, all right, what are they doing? Everybody does the same thing. We all have the same products. We all have mortgages. We all have the same rates. What makes me different?
Right. There's not they're not going to offer you a wheelbarrow full of gold bars and a home office in Tahiti like that. No, it's really different. I promise. It's really not. It's really not.
And, and so when I'm trying to build my relationships with my realtor partners, it's like, okay, well, what do I have to do differently that will attract these big name agents to want to work with me? Because I have to show that I'm doing something different than other people. But like, what's he doing? Why is he working with them? Okay, well, he's working with them. I want to work with him because he's doing that, And so it's just one of those things that you kind of need to be outside the box thinking of what you're doing. Find a niche, find something, figure out what you're good at, but make it better.
You said something right there too that was key advice that was given to me that I took to heart, was find a niche. If you try to be real general at it, you're not going to be very good at anything and do a lot of activity. And the other thing I found is my wife, I'm going to be honest, you watch me work, you're like, I don't see it. I don't see what you're doing. I don't get it. Like, what do you even do? But I've kind of fine-tuned it to where I know that if I send out this many messages and they're thoughtful and they're tailored, and I'm only going to send them to these types of people that I absolutely know will fit this client, I'm going to get this much of a response. Percentage-wise. Out of that response, I'm going to get this many that are actually legit, that have an interest, that I could get a resume and move forward with. And out of those 3, I probably place 1. So there's the funnel. Right. I already know it. So when are you going to do the funnel? That's it.
Right.
Versus, no, I'm just going to quadruple this and add a bunch of other stuff to it. I've already proved that doesn't work.
Right.
So it's finding a niche. The other thing about a niche is you can start to talk intelligently about it once you know it, and I also have the engineers I recruit and the clients. I'm not embarrassed to have them educate me,
right.
And I always tell them I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I really don't have any clue. I'm just a knucklehead, but they kind of like the self-effacing part. That just fits my style anyway. It's kind of who I am. But when you can talk to an engineer about everything other than engineering, about the company, culture, structure, a lot of other stuff, they're like, okay, you kind of get it. Like you get it. And that instills trust. And once they open up,
engineers are tough to talk to in the first place. I do a lot of loans for engineers, and they just are so numbers driven and so detail oriented. And I know when I get an engineer, and I can tell when I'm talking to an engineer, because when I get on the phone with them and they're just okay, they want numbers, they want breakdowns, they want everything. And it's just like, okay, you're an engineer. Like, just kind of like, some of them are not all of them, but some of them are dry because they're just so analytical. And you know what I mean? And it's like, all right. So I could see where that might be a little tough sometimes.
even here's an example. Like right now, I'm trying to close a few deals with this client I mentioned, and the engineer, the salary's great and everything, but they're starting to really dig into the premiums on the healthcare benefits and the differences. And sometimes I have to tell them, bro, if you really want to take a step back and look at this, we're talking a difference of your take-home pay, the way the benefits go through with pre-tax, of like $75. So is that the deal breaker, right? Or are all the reasons to improve yourself as an engineer, be challenged, the project mix, and everything you heard, is $75 a month a reason not to do that? And sometimes they have to have the wake-up call of the reality check. Dude, you're getting like analysis paralysis here.
Well, I've had to go through that when I deal with numbers with them. Yeah. And so like, because they want to go line by line sometimes. And, all right, what's this fee? What's this fee? What's this fee? And then they start, and they're like, wow, that's a lot. And I'm like, it's like, dude, you're buying $1 million home. It's like,
is it a lot? Yeah. Is it really?
I was like, really? Yeah, no. And so, so we have these conversations a lot. So, all right, so you got this going now. So now the real reason we brought you here, because I want to talk about this, because I believe in what you're doing, but I don't. So I have a very kind of thing. So, and I know you've recently got very big into this. So tell us what you're doing right now, because I see it on your shirt. And so
OutKast Paranormal. It kind of describes not only my personality, but what we're doing. So
just to back up. Yeah. So what you're doing now, just sort of like, and I'm assuming this is sort of like me. So my mortgage world, because I got successful in the mortgage world, has allowed me to do this. Yeah. Did your recruiting company allow you to get more into this?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's, I try to tell, and that's when I want to break you up there, but I try to tell people this, and I try to tell people this in the podcast or when I'm talking to them. Okay, don't get me wrong. I love mortgages, but it's not my passion. This is more my passion. I love talking to people. I love being social. I love being out there. That's my thing. Like, even with mortgages, I don't care. Like, they're fine. They're means. They pay the bills. But like, I actually enjoy going out to lunch with my realtors, being social with them, and that kind of thing. That's what drives me. So my job, because I was good at it with the mortgage world, is allowed me to do this. So when I talk to people and I say, look, okay, you may not love what you do, but be good at it. And then add what you do love. Figure it out. Figure out what your passion is. Because this has helped me pay for this, right? I mean, this is all out of my own pocket. I don't get paid anything for it. So, and I know you're the same way with what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
That's a great parallel. It really is. Like, this created the opportunity to buy time and explore things that I'm really interested in. Why am I really interested in something like this? Clearly, my background a little different, but born out of some odd things that happened as kids with some of my siblings, things that kind of scared us, but I won't get into real detail, but something to make you think maybe there's something else than just what's tangible in front of us. First book I ever checked out in the library was, I don't even remember the title of it, but it was something around these subjects. You know, it could be the Bigfoot thing, right, UFO thing, or ghosts. Let's just call that the main menu.
Right.
And it fascinated me. And we moved to all these different places that had legends or stories or stuff. And I always was like, just naturally gravitated towards that, period. So I'd watch these shows over the years, and then again, with the whole, like, who you are and who you're not, I'm like, I would like to put myself in a situation where you see these shows. I want to be right there in one of these places with a crew, and I want to see if anything happens.
Why?
Because
Why?
I guess I still need to get high. I need the adrenaline.
Scare the shit out of me.
But and talk about a challenge, man. Like, a lot of these guys are vets, right? And so there is something about camaraderie at 3 a.m. in difficult conditions with difficult people, in 20-degree weather, and filming is filming. It's a whole, there's a lot of standing around, there's a lot of setting up, and there's a lot of stuff. So it's like this basic training, like, little test, right? And then when you come through it, you the last day you're like, I'm never doing this again. Then a week later, like, I can't wait to do it again, right? There's something about the adrenaline, but the subject matter itself, like you, I'm like, I think 90% of this is all bullshit. And there's a lunatic fringe, like there is. We could talk about any subject right now, the way the internet is and the news, and people walk around ingesting information that aligns with what they believe, even if it's false. Mm-hmm. So we got a majority of people walking around believing a lot of things that just aren't true. Whatever side you're on, they're just believing things that aren't true, and they're getting upset about it. And they're wondering why you don't believe the same thing, right?
Yep.
This is a great diversion from all of that, but I have a knack of finding people. I'm a recruiter.
Right.
So I'll find people from a case of maybe 20 years ago, and I'll look at who actually investigated the case, or how did it even come to light, and where did I find it? And some of those are pretty compelling. Like, wow, this was like looked at by X, Y, and Z, whether it's a government agency, whether it was somebody that was whatever, and they all couldn't explain what was going on. I'll find those people. Relationship building. It may take 6 months, 8 months to get a relationship and get talking, and maybe I'll interview them and they're on my YouTube channel. But I want to go there and check out what they got going on. In most cases, and most cases. There's only a handful, small handful of people that I've gravitated towards like that and vetted to that point. And what I found is these people have things going on where they got divorced over and adult children involved. And I find those people and say, this person just cracked out, you know. And then when the ex-wife is crying and saying, if you experience what we experienced, your whole reality would be shattered. And I don't know how much I want to talk about this.
Wow.
And they start talking about it, and you could see that those two are clearly in love still. I'm like, why? I don't get it.
Right.
Whatever this is doesn't want us together. They say things like that. The adult kids start telling you things that happened growing up, stuff you can't make up. And they start showing you pictures that either this is an elaborate, and you're not, he's not that guy. And we stood where those pictures were taken. It's either that is the most profound, weird stuff I've ever seen, or you're just committed to a 20-year hoax at your expense and family's expense. And you don't want any money from it. All you want is someone to help you create some experiments to try to see what this is. Those are the ones I'm more interested in. People that have turned down money, don't want the attention, decades of stuff going on. Put me in that position. I want to see. Because even then, whether you believe it or not, it's a human interest story at that point, because it's like you've dedicated decades of your life to these claims and this whatever evidence you have, and you're standing on it at your expense, and you don't want any compensation and attention or money for it. Why would you do that?
Right.
And then you bring in family members and people that are like, no, it's legit, dude. It becomes compelling. And then on some of the subjects, like with the UFO subject recently coming to government levels, I've interviewed some people that on an Air Force base in 1967, we were stationed there. And my dad was off on leave on a mission, but we didn't know this happened. But,
wow.
You know, his job was second in command to go underground in these nuclear missile silos in Montana. And him and the commander, we'd be in an underground booth on our shift for 2 days. One sleeps, one stays awake, watches the controls. They get a call from above ground saying there's this big red ball above the gate. What do we do? He's like, well, I don't know. Like, watch it. Like, do not let it breach. Keep me posted. Wakes his commander up. Minutes later, the guy's frantic. Like, it's over. It's in there, and it's... Right about that time, they wake up and all the nuclear missile heads shut down, 10 of them. They're not connected like Christmas tree lights. They're individual silos. It's not possible to shut 10 down in a row. Shut down their nuclear missile capabilities, and then it comes back up. So he's got a non-disclosure in the 60s. This guy can't let it go, files for a Freedom of Information Act. Freedom of Information Act comes back, it describes the event, but it's a different group a week earlier on the same base. So there was a report that happened earlier in the week at a different set of missiles. One's called Oscar's Flight, the group, one's called Echo Flight. He got a report from the other one. So to this day, he's a gregarious 70-something-year-old retired military man. He's still vying to go to Congress. They've been up there, I got shared the declassified papers on it. Like, and it's not one of these, conspiracy theories. These are no, it's not like anything. It was a Freedom of Information Act released papers, and it has the events claiming what happened, and it has Boeing came out to test the everything, and it just said this is of grave concern because they can't have some kind of external force had to do this. We don't know what and how, so it's of grave concern. What else are they going to say? Right?
Yeah.
But stuff like that's compelling to me. Like, we didn't have the capability then. We don't have the capability now, our adversaries, but yet there it is in documentation in the 60s happening. And you fast forward now, interviewed a guy named Nick Pope, who was England's Ministry of Defense, retired now, lives in the States. He was assigned either you're going to work on the new boot for the military or the pension, or you can work on the UFO desk.
Okay.
What's that? He's like, totally neutral. You have to look at reports and vet whether they're a threat or if they're unexplained, or if it's a foreign adversary, or if it's people flying, whatever. This
Right.
was in the 80s and 90s. He takes a position, and he said the fascinating thing was I got the archive from the World War II days and stuff, and he said there's stuff I can't clearly talk about now because it's still, under the it's classified. But I will tell you, when you see it, this was happening in the 40s and 50s. So what struck him is like clearly there was no technology capable of that. Fast forward to 2017, where the Pentagon admits we have this ATIP program where we do still investigate this stuff. He gets the reports from there. There's 38 reports, none of which are a threat or a report about threats of adversaries, China, Russia. They're all reports on the possibility of interstellar travel, anti-gravitational propulsion, the Drake equation, which is simply the formula for how many possible other civilizations there are out there based on a theory. All these things that have nothing to do with measuring unidentified things that could be a threat.
Wow.
Because the first thing you say is Russia, China,
Right. Yeah,
Iran.
yeah.
Is that a threat?
Yeah.
It's all the possibility of it being from somewhere else. Right? And
Not
that's
from here.
That's from the Pentagon, right? That's the report from the Pentagon.
Right.
So those things compel me. And there's, a rabbit hole, and there's always conspiracy BS around all of it. I always boil down, I want to go to the place where someone's got that going on right now, take our equipment, set up shop, and see what we can see. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I've been in those positions,
Right.
and some things have happened that, again,
Did it freak you out?
Yeah, recently at this Conjuring house, there's stuff that happened there that
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I know you just went to the Conjuring house.
Yeah.
And that's pretty freaky. I mean, that's freaky
I didn't
enough.
sleep very well.
That's freaky enough watching the movie.
I did not sleep very well, and some guys slept fine, but you're always on alert, I guess. And we had a guy come in and set up an experiment based off of frequency that he felt if you wanted to get this house active, here's the theory. And it was an elaborate theory. It was one where he's telling me, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But as time went on, I got, okay, I get it. It's all frequency. It's all science-based, completely science-based. And even getting our frequencies, body frequencies, to a level to match it, and then the decibels of a certain amount of frequencies being played throughout the house at a certain time and where we're positioned, it's all mathematics, right? Got to hand it to this guy. He developed this experiment over a few years. It took him 2 days to set it up.
Jeez.
Literally set up. And when we did it the first time, we all had kind of weird experiences, but nothing profound. House didn't happen. We thought, dude, you set this all up. Let's do it again. Second night, stuff started going haywire. Like people freaking out. Running out of the house and
So
hearing things. And
That's what I was wondering. Are they hearing things, feeling things? It's...
We had a guy, Bolt, he was about 6'5", and he's not part of the crew. We always hope, I can bring someone that knows somebody, just bring him along.
Right.
That wants to check this out. He comes flying out of the room past me, and it looks like he's terrified. And he runs outside to the guy that's doing the experiment, and he gets in his face. He said, you changed something from last time. You added some audios, because he was hearing voices and seeing things around him. Freaked out.
Oh, wow.
Freaked out. Right about that time, someone comes up from the basement. They're having some this freaky stuff they're describing. So it's kind of going a little nuts. They're going outside to talk, and where is he? Where is he? And me and these other two guys are there, and we hear a woman moan.
Oh, shit.
And I'm always like that can't be real.
Right.
Did
I hear something?
Yeah, no, it can't be real.
Right.
Or this can't be real.
Right.
I'm like, so let's stop. Do you hear that? Yeah, that's what did it sound like that? It did. Stairs go up. We hear it moan from up the stairs. What the hell? We run up there, and then there's this door shut to this little, what they call the birthing room, which is creepy, just
Right.
in the name alone, right? It's a little attic-y thing, space, and it'd be like you and your son. Right, the guy had his son who was about your son's age, and the son goes, "It's in the room." And once he said that, we opened the door, and then we hear a louder, audible, and you could see it's this big, like from here. It's just this room, this woman moaning, and so let's sit in here and do this experiment or whatever. And we after that, nothing happened there, but people were having those type of experiences around the house, and had some other things flash while we're just like us recording and doing this thing, and the same exact lights. And above, something just flashes, and then all the hair on my arm starts going up, and the guy's sitting here, my partner, and we both feel this electrical charge, and I'm like, dude, I don't have a lot of hair on my arm, but it's standing straight up. and he was the same. And then once it stopped, we both said at the same time, okay, it's over. Like the electricity's dropped. And the owner of the house said, that's the type of stuff that happens a lot. You know, this like electricity and stuff. So again, and some other things that I won't even go into. I don't even know if we're going to put in the film.
Because that was what I was going to ask you. Because I know you're working on a film, and then I think you're working on some other stuff too, right? That you're going to be putting out on TV.
Yeah, we've got on August 2nd, some of the stuff we've been filming about a year and a half. On August 2nd, we have our first episode. The films themselves are going to be short series, like 3. We're trying to do like a
mini-series?
You see the theme of them. They cut back and forth in the episode to what we're doing, but kind of cuts back and forth, and so does the second, so does the third, till it culminates. So a series of trilogies, I guess, right? The first one that we shot about a year and a half ago comes out, and we just got a text from the VP at 1091 Films, and it's coming out August 2nd. He's got us on Amazon, iTunes, I think Tubi, and a couple others. I'll have to get back to you on that, but that's going to be worldwide distribution, and then the next month we'll do more of a full-length YouTube video just for our YouTube channel on one of these areas I talked about.
Right.
And then the next month, part 2, and then next month like a YouTube, then the next month, part 3. So over the course of a year, we've got a pipeline of stuff that'll be probably 9 films on streaming platforms, 3 trilogies, I guess.
Right.
And we've got 2 of them shot. One of them is coming out. The Conjuring will be the other one we're editing. I start to edit, and then we've got another one we're going to film here in the fall. And in between, a lot of this stuff is, I've always told you, where were you? I'm like, I was on an Indian reservation in Macy, Nebraska. Like, well, dude, what were you even doing there? Well, let me tell you. That type of stuff is coming out on YouTube, as well as some other stuff. So
you've done some crazy shit.
I've done some crazy stuff, but it suits me, right? It suits me. And I'm the straight edge guy of the group.
So how do you find these places? Do you just like start like doing research for it, or how do you figure out? Because I mean, I know you were telling me about the Conjuring house, like because did you say they sold it or what?
Yeah.
And so you were lucky to get in there.
Well, the lady's still doing that. The new owner is still taking people in as like tours, and if they want to pay a certain amount, they can investigate over a night or a weekend.
Okay.
But I don't know about film crews. I'll give a shout out to Stacy Brown Jr. with our group. Stacy Brown Jr., if you saw him, you're like, he's got a beard down to here, grew up near Tallahassee. He's talented as a storyteller, as an editor. He fronted a band for a while that almost made it. He's an artistic guy like that.
Right.
He's just Stacy Brown, man. I relate to him because he doesn't want to work for anybody else. He wants to do it his way. He knows, like the owner of the Conjuring house that just sold it. He knows these people, like these cameramen and stuff, and audio guys that will all do this with us for minimal to no cost, just to help us just to be a part of it, right? And that's a lot of groups you'll find do this kind of paranormal investigation, but not a lot of them are a film production company and have the ability to produce and put it all out there. And we're like in that rare spot that you can do it. But Stacy knew the owner, Corey. Combat vet, hardcore guy. Corey's super cool. And we took him out to the res with us. And he said, you guys ought to come up before, we're thinking of selling it. Well, week before we get up there, the Wall Street Journal puts out an article that the Conjuring house sold and for what it sold. And then interviews with him and the new owner. And he's texting me because I'm trying to get logistics with him before we go. And he's upset about this article. I'm like, why would you be upset? You interviewed and so did she. And he's like, no, dude, we haven't closed on it yet. And they're putting numbers out and stuff like that. So we thought, are we even going to be able to go? But it worked out. And then it was on Fox News. I'm like, really? People are interested in the Conjuring house, the sale of it? But
I guess so.
I didn't know.
Well, and the movie was so big. I mean, so I mean, that's the thing. And I'm sure that's why they were talking about it.
I'm sure.
What did it sell for, do you know?
1.2 million.
1.2. Because where's it at? It's up.
He bought it like for under
that,
$4.
Is that where is it? Ohio?
It's Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. I know it's up north somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a farm in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So, and there was stuff outside the farm area that some people were having. Like the kid came in, the son came in the next day crying, and we haven't even gone through that footage yet of what they experienced out there. So,
Sheesh.
yeah, you know, my wife's just the sweetest, most normal Towson grad.
Yeah,
just
right.
like
my
you
wife.
know, your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And
I always forget about that they went to the same college.
yeah, and she's embarrassingly supportive of me. But I think she knows, like, he takes care of us, and this is his passion. At least the guy's got a hobby, and it's kind of like I'm not going to stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like I'm not going to stop. Like, I'm on to, for better or for worse. Hopefully this stuff pays for itself.
One day.
If not, I'm in it for the adventure.
Right.
But it all kind of pivots off of what we talked about initially. Get yourself in a position where you can, you know, go look for Bigfoot, or go skydiving, or go
start a podcast.
Yeah, or start a podcast. You know.
Yep. No, because it's like, you know, and that it is. You got to have something that's yours too. I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And it's like, I know we've had like a ton of conversations about it because at the gym. So for everybody that don't know, I met James at the gym. Good, we've been friends 4 years now.
Yeah.
So talk every day, and so I was like, you kept telling me stories about this. I was like, dude, we just need to get you on the podcast because like now it's getting interesting. So
yeah,
you know, tell us a little bit about the Indian reservation that you went to.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was another one too, where through research, it's like you kind of. Either you have a knack for it or you don't, and I guess I have a knack for it, right, on the production side. And I find these brothers that are Native American from the Omaha tribe. And the Omaha tribe, where they're located, is right on the Missouri River, north, like a couple hours north of Omaha. So it's timber. It doesn't look like Nebraska. It's not like cornfields or anything. While they have fields, there's like this high level of timber. Well, this guy, I finally link up with him. And he tells me that when these shows got real popular back in the day, like 2012 and whatever, Finding Bigfoot,
they all the paranormal movies, and
yeah,
all that kind of
and
stuff.
like the Finding Bigfoot thing was like a 10-season, like they nailed it, right? Well, one of the guys that we do this with was a producer for 6 years on that.
Okay.
And Stacy, that's how he met Stacy, who had this footage from his dad that made the rounds worldwide. Of this thing walking out that his dad took, and when they were together, his dad wasn't even trying, and scared the hell out of him. So, long story short, all of us kind of are in that same mode. We don't want to work for a network. We don't want to do what how everybody else does it. We want to do it our own way.
Okay.
And our own way, just as a precaution, if you watch it, there's stuff that some of our team does that you're not going to see. That may be offensive to certain people, and maybe just too wild. Think Jackass, Paranormal, but not. It's just kind of hardcore. Some stuff that might be not your cup of tea, but that's how we're going to do it. You know. So, just FYI, if anyone watches stuff, you're like, this is crazy. But I talked to him, and he tells me, he's like, you know, when I grew up, we knew they call them Sitonga. That's the native name for these ancient people, is what they believe. He said we knew about them before I knew about Batman and Robin. And the theme was this, leave them alone, right? Well, when this got real popular with the shows, his teenage son came to him and said, Dad, we know they're out there. Why don't we just go look for them? And he said, challenge accepted. However, they got some pushback from the tribal council and the elders, like, hey, you're not supposed to mess with them. Did it anyway, right? And he initially started doing it more like he did in the shows, like yelling in the woods like an idiot, knocking on trees or whatever. And he's a man of faith. Like, he's an interesting guy. He was featured on ESPN in the 90s because he played on this native league, and they were in a tournament, like at a collegiate level, and he was a baller, man. Like, team had a bunch of injuries, a bunch of people fouled out. They had 3 people left to play the end of the game against 5.
Oh, wow.
He ended up dropping like 29, and they won the game. And it's called the 3-man weave, and it was featured on ESPN.
Okay.
So, kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, right.
And I know that he's a fighter, right? They're and when you go out there and you deal with them, man, it's different. It's different. You got to be ready for a challenge, and they will challenge you. But long story short, he started going out and he started relying on his faith versus these tactics. It's just what came to his heart, and he started having them showing themselves to him, and to a point where it's kind of him. He's the one that they know as like a representative of their people, and this one's a representative of their people. And again, this has been 15 years. And anybody in this field, there's a few professors that just based off of the footprints that are left, and one guy's a professor of like foot morphology for primates. Like that's what he does. Was taken to a spot years ago in the middle of nowhere, like under a bush, and someone's like, check that out. And he's like, there's dermal ridges like your fingerprints on the toes. And the way the metatarsal break is, you'd have to be 800 pounds. It wouldn't be a human arch. It'd be flat and would break back here. Like he was convinced there's something big that's did this, because no one would leave that, and you couldn't fake it. So he's kind of in the camp of, there's something out there. But he's a science guy. So he went out to the res. We found out all these people that were anybody had been out there. And these guys are different, man. They do it a certain way. It's grounded in like their spirituality. Anything else, they'll tell you to F off. Literally just like that. And they told TV production companies a lot of F off. And somehow I navigated this relationship with him, and we become friends. And he trusted us to come out and film where people haven't filmed before.
Oh, wow.
And we experienced some things there, especially this last time. We came back. And yeah, there's some things I experienced personally more than I did at this other house where, there was like marks left on the back of my leg. And you'll see some of this on the YouTube stuff to where I'm going, I don't know what to think about this now. I don't even know if I want to tell my wife about this now. Just stuff that if you go down the rabbit hole, you experience some stuff that's hard to crawl out. But I try to I always vet everything out. Like, it's not what 90% of people say this stuff is. But when you put yourself in that position and things happen, then it's like, how do you stop? I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to figure out what's really going on. So it sucks you right out of the everyday grind. You know what I mean?
Sounds interesting. Sounds
like I'll talk to an engineer about how the Revit skills are for drafting an HVAC system, and then I'm talking about Bigfoot with a guy at an Indian reservation on the next call. Talk about mixing it up.
That's a very big difference.
Yeah, that's night and day, dude.
Yeah, because I've gone, and so I've gone to some places like with Debbie, because she's kind of into this stuff.
Okay.
So, and she watched The Conjuring, but like we've gone and we've done like the tours and stuff like that, where you go into a house and you take a bunch of pictures and that kind of thing. And I'm just like, I want to believe it, but I don't know if I can believe it. And it's like, and we've taken pictures and we're like, okay, because I'll tell you, take them real fast. Right. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, okay, yeah, that's not there in that picture, but now all of a sudden it is in that picture, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's kind of weird. So like, we do see weird stuff out there, and and sometimes you just can't explain it, and I don't know, it's really just kind of interesting, because in some ways, I believe that there's more than just us. I can't believe that we're just it, right? And so, like, to that part, I'm like, all right, there's something else out there. And same thing with, and I'm going to tell you one story, which is really, really freaky. Super freaky.
Lay it on me.
All right, so my wife, so Debbie's grandfather had passed away.
Yeah.
And he just passed away. And, like, 3 days later, we're in our bathroom, and we have an Alexa in our bathroom. It starts playing one of his favorite songs. And we've never told it to do that. We never said anything. She started crying. Like, she's like, what the hell? She goes, he's here. He's letting me know that he's still here. I'm like, that's weird. It just started playing one of his songs one of his favorite songs. I was like, okay, something's strange, you know, and you can't explain it. And it was just, and that happened, and it was like 2 or 3 days after he had passed away. Just weird things.
Yeah, I mean, again, my wife will send me some stuff, and she's like, "Why? Can we cuss on this podcast?"
Oh yeah.
She's like, "Why are you such a dick? Like when it comes to this, like you don't believe, like you're the biggest skeptic out of anybody. I don't understand. Like, how can you put yourself in these positions, experience that, and then be so skeptical?" It always boils down to I need to see it.
Yeah,
I need to experience.
exactly.
I know there's so much BS out there that everything I look at, it's like it's probably garbage.
We're feed BS all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, in the government
right.
and everything else, right? So they want you to believe what they want you to believe, or they put out the news is the same way. So it's like, okay, but I'm like you. I'm like, I need to see it. I need to physically feel it or see it to believe it, you know. And it's like, okay, I can't explain that.
And even then with some of the stuff that happened, I always go back to like mulling it around in my head, even though there's someone else and we saw the same thing and we're talking about it and we're trying to rule out everything, and you kind of can't. As an example, there's another group that does what we do, but they've been very successful now for 7 years or more, and they wanted to have us as part of a Florida. They wanted to do this Beyond the Trail up things they do for their YouTube channel, which they also do films, and they wanted us to meet them at a spot my boy Stacy picked out that he said, look, weird stuff happens up here. You know, you guys are in the Bigfoot thing, okay, but there's also some other stuff that's associated with it. And we're there, we hear some things, we go back to the car. I'm being very abbreviated here, but me and one of the kids from their group standing here looking in the wood line, and they're milling around, and there's the treetops, there's the sky, a ball of light, about a softball-sized bright ball of light, starts from the treetop, zigzags, shoots across, and just disappears right in front of us. And you hear us on audio. What the was that, dude? Did you? And they don't believe. They think that they're like, well, all this Bigfoot is like a big mammal, a big primate. I'm like, I don't know if it's real. Think about it. Why wouldn't anyone have captured one or killed one or evidence? Like, it's pretty good escape artists. And then there's a theory of being on the reservation and hearing their end of it and seeing some of the things there, and then these other things. It's like there's almost this theory of an interdimension. Like science says, there's more maybe interdimensional possibilities. Right. Einstein had these, the wormhole theories that there's areas you could actually go in and out of. So while it might be, if I had a cell phone 100 years ago and laid it on the table and did that, I'm a warlock. I'm magic, right? It's just that we haven't found it yet. Right, so I'm more okay with the possibility that interdimensional, some things maybe can cross through, and that's what we're seeing with these lights and these being whatever. But I've seen enough to know these people aren't lying, or maybe they've got it on their brain and they think a lot of it's associated. I'll set all that aside, but what I saw and some of this other stuff, it's like I'm having a hard time reconciling a logical, scientific explanation for that, and it's always enough to keep me coming back. It's very easy to say, forget all this, go back to recruiting engineers and your 9-to-5 life and whatever reality we're currently in, and let's just buy into that because that's tangible,
right?
Kind of, And when you do this, it's like. And I used to be embarrassed. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to put it out there. People are like, oh, this guy's, he's in that job. I mean, think about it.
But it's out there. I mean, a lot of people do it. A lot of people talk about it, and and I kind of find it a little bit interesting because there's got to be some truth to it, in some ways, whether you want to believe it or not. I mean, there's something. I mean, whether it is, I don't know. But, that's why I was like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I started kind of like you did with more of the touristy type little things you can do. And then I meet these guys, and they're like, oh, no, we're going to go, like, in the woods for 3 days, and we're filming till 4 a.m. Or you put yourself in these real places, and you're thinking, well, why this place? And then you look at the history and some of the people, and you talk to, especially what I found here in Florida, when investigating, our version of the Bigfoot here is called the skunk ape, right? We're on these farms, and this old dude's got a notebook of all these encounters he's had, and his family, his son son's big burly kid's talking about, dude, you know, we had to put like this over the windows because they were looking in at night, and I had to go to a shotgun next to the neighbor's farm. She's hardcore. Like every place we went around there, we said, "Can we go on this property?" And he's like, "You can, but they'll shoot you. You can, but they'll shoot you." I'm like, "They're going to shoot people up here?" And he's like, it's old Florida, man." He's like, "Don't mess around. You better talk to them first." Well, this lady was tough as nails, and he got a call, and she said one of these things came out, was pushing on her truck, and she said it was female because it had breasts. She's freaking out. She calls him, makes his son go over. It's like calling her and makes him go over there with a shotgun to check it out and let her in. She's hysterical. She didn't talk to us. She was going to let us interview her, but we did check out her house. All of a sudden, there's this surveillance. She's got cameras all over her little farm. No reason for it. But they built her a chicken coop. Thing was ripped apart, and they got this cast of this footprint like about 18 inches long in the middle of the chicken coop where it was ripped apart. Shit like that. And they don't want to talk about it, dude. They're very like, she didn't want to, she like ended up passing on talking to us about stuff. But
interesting.
Yeah, it's stuff like that where you get like, how many people aren't talking about this?
Yeah. Or don't,
you know?
They're scared to talk
or don't want to
about
talk. And I get it. Like if I had a job, a real job that I couldn't hire or fire myself.
Right.
I wouldn't put it out there. Although I will say, I can end with this. Talk about kind of tying this all together. Believing in yourself, find out who you are, who you're not. That's who I am, right? I like different things. I got in a position where I want to explore them to the fullest, right? And I want to work the way I want to work, and I put myself in a position where I can take care of my family and do it to the fullest. I got an opportunity to work for a friend of mine who's a client, and they wanted to hire me. And I really considered it, thinking, COVID could flare up again. Right. It could really kill the market. So I started working on a contract basis. My company, but on a contract basis. And hit it off with them. But it was like 60 hours a week if I wanted to do it right.
Right.
And it kept me from doing this. And then they made me a full-time offer, which is a very generous offer. And I had to turn it down. And I told her why. It's like if this VP I'm talking to, I'm like, I make paranormal films. And I'm just out with it. Even the guy that sits under the president said, "Dude, send me some links. I want to see this stuff." And they were like, now I recruit for them as an outside agency, right?
Right.
And who could make that up, right? I recruit for them, and everything we talk about, conversation-wise. So where'd you film? What happened? And we're talking for an hour with them about my film stuff, and then we get around to candidate stuff. So I think a lot of people are interested in it, but until you bring it up and you have some real experience, they're like, there's no reason for me to talk about it, and
I think they want to talk about it, but they also don't want to, maybe sometimes don't want to believe it either. I
don't either. I'll be honest.
It's like, they're like, all right, we don't really, because I don't know if we're ready for it.
That's a good point. There's a lot of fear because it could upend a lot of established belief systems.
Exactly.
And that's terrifying to a lot of people. And you'd have to reconsider some things.
Mm-hmm. It changes a lot of things.
It really does. And who wants, look, it's hard enough just to get up and be in this world.
In this crazy world that we're living in right now, right?
There's an 80-mile-an-hour wind blowing outside right now where it used to not be, like every day with what we're barraged with. And you want to add that to the mix?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Exactly.
But I also think that if aliens landed on the White House lawn and they filmed it, half the population would think that's just the government faking it. They have the technology, no matter what. And the other half would be like, see, I told you they were real. And within a couple weeks, if there wasn't anything dramatic happening, they'd just go back out on looking at TikTok, or something.
It just kind of rolls. Well, they do that with everything.
Yeah.
It's there for a minute, then they're on to the next thing.
Yep.
So it's just kind of crazy. So where can they catch your YouTube, or where can they find more information?
Sure. It's OutKast with a K, OutKast Paranormal on YouTube. There's a couple other channels we found that had that, and oddly enough from Florida from some years ago that was very small, but you'll see we have this, what we call hodgepodge. It's this doll in some form or fashion. Should be on the logo there. So OutKast with a K Paranormal on YouTube, OutKast Paranormal Official on Instagram, and then look for OutKast Paranormal. It's called the Skunk Ape Experiments, our first one. Should be on Amazon August 2nd.
Cool.
Amazon, iTunes, there'll be some other avenues, but everyone seems to Amazon seems a big go-to
right
for it. So we'll see where it goes.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming in, telling us your stories.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, brother. I really do.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.